Hey, well, good morning, everybody. It's Friday morning, and if you're not aware, we had another school shooting at Florida State. Sorry for the summer, and I'm sorry for the families that lost their loved ones today. You know, we talk a lot about preventing and taking appropriate care and watch out for what's going on around you, making sure you get people the help they need. Unfortunately, a young man decided to take a gun from his mother and shoot two innocent people at Florida State. I think Doc and I are going to talk today about what's getting ready to happen as far as the verbiage and what we need to do as a community to ensure this doesn't happen again. So, Doc, I'm going to hand it over to you and talk about those things we know will help prevent the next incident.
Yeah, I know it's another tragedy. Same story, but different name, different location. Unfortunately, these are tragic. So my understanding, as of an hour or so ago, I was reading it, was that the shooter. This is a Florida State in Tallahassee, Florida. The shooter, we understand, it was just a lone shooter. His mom is in law enforcement, and the gun that was used belonged to his mom, and it was either a duty weapon or a weapon that she purchased from the department. Unsure exactly the details on that. Doesn't really matter for our discussion, but that's what happened. And then he went to, I guess it was a common area, I think. I think it was outside, or at least in the common area, and then two people were dead. He was shot, and I believe he survived. That's all the information I have right now, but that's enough to talk a little bit about, as far as, we're always looking at that, see something, say something, and all this other stuff, right? And there's this concept that we have to get past, is that a lot of the reason that this stuff isn't reported or behaviors aren't reported is because there's this thing called the bystander effect. The bystander effect simply means that either if something happens and you don't do anything about it, even though you're witnessing it or you know about it. And there's a lot of things that factor into that. Some of it is that, well, they're not going to believe me, I don't want to be judged, or someone else is going to do it, or I don't want to be wrong. And a number of other reasons add up to the fact that you can have something in the middle of the street happening, in the middle of the city, and everyone stands around and no one reports it and lets it happen. And, I think they're more inclined to get their video camera out and record it than they are trying to stop it or report it or, give information before it becomes an emergency or an attack of some sort. And so, when we're talking about schools, and, in this case, it was a university, it doesn't really matter. Schools, universities, workplaces, things like this. It's one thing to have a threat assessment process, and we've talked about that a lot, the pathway to violence, things like this. I think it's even more important that we change the environment or the culture of workplaces, and especially schools, universities, and get away from that idea that if you report something that is concerning, that somehow that's wrong, or somehow you're ratting on someone, or and that keeps people from doing that. And I think what you have to reframe this is, when you're training your folks, your kids, and things like this, this is not about ratting on anyone. This is about helping them, because initially when these behaviors start to occur, it's usually because of a loss. It's because they feel wronged. It's because they feel persecuted or bullied, or it might even be an ideology. And however you shake it, it's still a grievance, and they're frustrated. And if you let that frustration grow, then it's going to become violent if they go into crisis and no one's dealing with it. And when someone goes into crisis, they change their behavior. And this changes in behavior is what we mean by concerning. And I think that one of the things to keep in mind is, when you're training in threat assessment, you actually got to train the people on what to give the threat assessors, making them good observers, make them feel comfortable and okay with reporting concerning behavior, regardless if it turns out to be anything at all, and then not judge it. And not expect that, that they might be wrong. It's not up to them to determine that. It's up to the threat assessors, the one that have training to make sense of that. And so this changing this this culture and this training. And so what I'm trying to do now is developing some training. I've been doing it with some of the school districts and things like this. And that's actually, training the teachers and the kids and the parents and these various groups of people as to what this concerning behavior is. And it's called behavioral detection and reporting. And it's a course I'm putting together where you teach people on how to be good observers so they can make sense of it. Now, it's not their job to actually assess and say, hey, yeah, there's going to be violence or not, or this person is going to be violent or not, or make any sort of intervention necessarily. Just the fact that whatever your relationship is with the person that is concerning, it's concerning because it's concerning. And the reason you know it is simply because it's different. People act different when they're in crisis and when they're grieved to a certain degree. And when it gets bad enough, it's really noticeable. So these changes in behaviors, we call them anomalies, we call them abnormal behavior, but really it's concerning behavior. And so the people who are actually experiencing this, observations concerning behavior from someone that they know, report it. Don't judge it. You're not ratting on them. This is really to help them and ultimately to help you, your school, your institution, and everybody else around you. Because again, if we can get the grievance handled before it becomes a fatal grievance that becomes violent, okay, that leads to the violence. And then what you have is when that happens, if you have access to weapons, that's going to be the first thing you're going to go for, right? It's going to be, so if your mom is, in law enforcement or family's in law enforcement, whatever, and they leave the gun on the table or easy access, that gun's not going to do anything until you pick it up and use it. And so it's not just about the gun, access, which is important. We certainly want to keep track and keep, access to guns to people who it should be. But it's not about blaming the gun on this. It's a matter that, again, it comes back to, and as this unfolds, everybody just watch what happens. You're going to find that this kid had some sort of grudge or some sort of grievance with someone at the school, a group at the school, or maybe the school itself. And that has led, and it's not something that just happened yesterday or today. It's something that's probably been going on for weeks, months, and sometimes even years. And if you kind of sit back and think about that, there are tons of opportunities. Everyone that knows that kid is going to have seen changes in the behavior. And so it's not just about having a threat assessment team in place that knows what they're doing. It's about getting that information. It's like with a computer, garbage in, garbage out. You got to be good observers and good reporters and know what a concerning behavior is and get it to the right people and then carry on with your life, because it's not your job to judge it. And I think if we can change that culture and, improve that process, making people good reporters and getting rid of that bystander effect, I think that we can make some progress in this area.
I'm going to go down a path here, Doc, you're probably not going to like, so please forgive me as I start this, but I'm just going to say this. In the 70s, as a kid growing up, you didn't see this happening.
Mm-mm.
Why didn't you see this happening? Because people cared about each other. We weren't divided as a nation. We weren't picking sides. We weren't saying anti-gun, pro-gun. We were saying treat human beings like human beings. And when I was a kid, if I got out of line, I got talked to by my dad or maybe got whooped with some switches or something else to bring me back in line. My dad was a police officer. There were guns in the house. We didn't have a safe when I was a kid. And I never thought once about picking my father's gun up and doing anything with it because I knew better.
Right.
I also knew that my parents loved me. And I knew my community loved me. They were there for me. I think, unfortunately, these kids today, they don't have that outlet. They don't have those people that love them anymore. We have picked so many sides in this country. We need to start being human beings again. It's not about red and blue. It is about people that are dealing with tough stuff. And we made it easier for people to be picked on and made fun of because we have these little phones. We can do whatever we want to. Knock it off. Right? And if you're in school and you're a student, you're listening to this, if you see one of your friends struggling or somebody's not your friend struggling, tell somebody. Go up, talk to them, and go, hey, you okay? Have a conversation. It's time for us to grow up and stop acting like some of the adults in the world and be human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And until we, as adults, as responsible adults, hold our kids accountable to that standard, and teachers hold kids accountable to a standard of behaving and acting proper, this isn't going to change.
Right.
The only thing that solves these active shooter events is community, coming together as a community, as one, and looking after each other. Until we figure that out, you can have all the cool toys in the world, you can have all the video cameras in the world, you can have whatever you want. But until we address the grief process and the path of violence, this isn't going to stop. So I hope some politicians listen to this now, they do something about it and start giving people the tools and start behaving on TV instead of yelling at each other and try to find ways to solve problems.
Yep.
It's the time 2 innocent children died today.
Yep.
There are parents grieving, their grandparents grieving, their brothers and sisters are grieving. And the third child lost his life because he's never going to set foot back in the world again. He's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. So it's up to us as adults to make smart decisions and start treating people with the respect they deserve. That's my soapbox, Doc. I apologize to the audience, but it breaks my heart every time I know a parent lost a child.
Yeah,
as a father.
Me too.
So.
No, 100%.
So, all right, Doc. Well, you have a wonderful weekend. I know you got some stuff going on with your wife today. I hope it all goes well. Take care. If you need anything, please let me know.
All right. Sounds good. Have a great weekend.
All right, with that, SafeDefend Live, we are